Simon, called Simeon, a name that appears discreetly in the scriptures, like a whisper between great chapters. An old man, often forgotten, inhabitant of the temple, who walked daily among the shadows and the silence. He was not a priest or a renowned prophet, but he carried a promise to himself. He would not die without seeing the anointed of the Lord. What class of faith is this? What hope holds a heart for years, decades, before the silence of God? Today we will delve deeper into the story of Simeon, the man of hope, the sentinel of hope, the gaze that saw salvation before the world recognized it. Simeon was not a figure who sought fame or public recognition. His life passed behind the scenes of sacred history, but his role was essential, almost invisible to the eyes of the majority. Your silent wait reveals a dimension of faith that is rarely exalted, perseverance in the invisible, loyalty to what has not yet been manifested. This man, whose eyes were lost in the time of not being in the scriptures, is a powerful symbol of hope that cannot be laughed at. If you are new here, subscribe to the channel. Share your opinion in the comments. In this space, we seek more than stories. We offer narrative investigations that combine history, symbolism, spirituality, and psychology. Today, you will not hear a traditional sermon, but a poetic and rigorous reconstruction of the figure of Simeon, his context, his implicit theology, his humanity, and above all, his role as a symbol for all of us who also expect something from someone. The Temple of Jerusalem was more than a building, it was a beating heart. In its atriums, pilgrims, Pharisees, priests, merchants, beggars, Roman soldiers, and forgotten hopes met. Simeon lived in this space, not as an employee, but as a devotee. It was one of those familiar faces that I never recognized. The city expected the redemption of Israel, but it expected in the form of a sword, revolution, and strength. Simeon expected something more, not an armed liberator, but a face of peace. With each child presented to the temple, their eyes sought, in silence, in prayer with fear, the confirmation of God's promise. Jerusalem, during Simeon's time, was a city full of political, cultural, and religious tensions. The weight of Roman domination was felt on every street, with different groups waiting for the Messiah arrival for different reasons. There was expectation, but also distrust and fear. In this complex scene, Simeon seemed like a silent pillar of true faith, one that does not want to be seduced by ideologies or ephemeral movements, a bell that remains anchored in the divine promise. The Gospel of Luke says that Simeon was just and pious, and that the Holy Spirit was upon him. These three characteristics, righteousness, piety, and presence, are rare even among the great biblical figures. We don't know his profession, exact age, family, or origins. The only thing that matters is what you carry inside, the certainty that you will see God's salvation with your own eyes. This promise shaped your days, your actions, your thoughts. Simeon was not a military protagonist. He did not perform miracles. He did not direct multitudes. But his silent existence was, in itself, a prophetic act. Why wait with faith is, perhaps, the most revolutionary gesture. Simeon's justice was not merely legal, the ritual. It was a justice of the heart, a deep loyalty to the alliance that Israel had with God. His piety was not an empty formalism, but a living communion with the Holy Spirit. Therefore, I was elected to a unique role, to be the last guardian of ancient hope and the first herald of its fulfillment. And then, on another day, Maria and Jose entered the temple with a newborn in their arms. For everyone, a baby among many. For Simeon, the culmination of a lifetime of waiting. Your feet advance, your eyes light up, and your arms, perhaps fearful, support the Niño as if they supported the universe. And he prays, "Now, Lord, you can dismiss your servant in peace, because my eyes have seen your salvation." It's not just a beautiful phrase, it's the declaration that the end of your life coincides with the beginning of the redemption of the world. Simeon, is the point of transition between the ancient and the new, between expectation and fulfillment, between promise and presence. This meeting is full of symbolism. El Niño in the arms of the elderly represents the continuity of the divine plan. The Old Testament meets the new. The past gives way to the future, and hope finally comes true. Simeon, who lived so many years waiting, recognizes in the fragility of his newly born power that will transform history. But it's not all tenderness. Behind the praise, Simeon pronounces a heartbreaking prophecy for Maria. This child will be the fall and the resurgence, and a sword will pierce your own soul. There reveals that salvation would not come without pain, that Messiah on the ground would be a consolation, but also a confrontation. Simeon, the one who waited, also announces, "See more of the present, see the cross on the horizon," and this transforms this moment into something more than an emotion. It is an anticipation of the passion. Simeon, therefore, is the first to connect incarnation with redeeming sufficiency. Simeon's prophecy is not just a prediction, but an invitation to understand that redemption has a price. The sword that will pierce Maria symbolizes the inevitable pain on the path to salvation. It is a reminder that the glory of God passes through the cross, and that the truth is accompanied by suffering and courage. After this, the text falls into silence. Simeon disappears. Just like Barabbas, his story has no epilogue. We don't know if he died on the same day, if he shared his experience, if he was ridiculed or venerated, but this silence forms part of the symbol. Simeon fulfills his function and disappears, like a light that goes out at dawn. It teaches us that some missions are completed in an instant, and that a full life is not measured in public words, but in secret loyalty. This silent ending is probably the most eloquent. Simeon does not seek fame or recognition. It is the test that loyalty to the promises of God can be silent and discreet, but never insignificant. Your testimony comes to fruition over time, in the voices of those who hope with patience and confidence. Simeon represents all those who hope for something that the world does not understand. It represents priests who pray for their children, elders who bring promises, invisible intercessors, believers who remain included without response. It is the symbol of active waiting, not idleness, but spiritual availability. And what is bad also teaches us to let go. Go see Jesus, ask to go. How many of us would know how to regain fullness and rest? Simeon shows us that seeing is not all. Trust is bad. Waiting is noble, but delivery is even more sublime. The figure of Simeon transcends time and culture. It is a universal archetype of hope, patience, and delivery. In a world where immediacy predominates, its history is called from depth, waiting for it to build and transform. It reminds us that faith is not just an act of seeing, but rather an act of believing until the ultimate alienation. We live in a world of prisons, where to expect an insult every now and then. Simeon's story defies this logic. He states that God's time is different, that there are promises that take decades to be fulfilled, and that the truth of faith persists without delay. Furthermore, it denounces our attempt to force the creation of Messiah, political, emotional, and ideological solutions, instead of waiting for the true Redeemer. Simeon is the antidote against immediacy. Your life calls us to active patience, to listening to the Spirit, and to unconditional trust. In the accelerated rhythm of modern life, Simeon invites us to reduce the pace, to trust in divine time, and to keep the call of hope alive, even when the evidence seems contrary. You are a silent maestro of spiritual perseverance. What promise do you carry inside? What has God shown you but has not yet been accomplished? Simeon's story reminds you that waiting is not a time wasted, a bell that takes shape, that every day you remain faithful is an invisible construction of something eternal. Simeon had no focus, but he had eyes that saw the impossibility. Perhaps you are also in this temple, walking among ruins, waiting for something. The message is clear: persevere. Because the Niño always arrives, and when it arrives, everything changes. Simeon disappears from the pages, but his shadow illuminates the path of those who hope. It teaches us that there is no faith without silence. There is no promise without time. If this story moved you, subscribe to the channel. Share in the comments, what are you waiting for? What do you carry in secret before God? May the same spirit that moved Simeon move you away today, and that, at the end of your path, you can decide with peace. My eyes have seen salvation.